everyone. My name is Max Booth. Welcome to my spooky confessional. Well, every week I will have a guest come on and talk about one classic horror movie that they have not seen and why. We will discuss the movie, the cast, and probably get off topic quite a bit. Once I believe they have properly atoned, I will absolve them of the whole movie's sin. Now, I have some notes real fast. I will not be doing this every week. That's a lie. I'm doing it one time and one time only, and that time is now. And I'm not going to get off topic because I am a fucking professional and I know how to podcast. I don't know why that was in the notes of the intro. Not going to get off topic. That is something I don't do. When I do a podcast, I stay on topic the whole time, and I don't get off topic. So, I mean, if you are expecting some disorganized podcast, go listen to something else, like Dead Headspace. Now, today on the final, the second.
Shots fired.
Wow, do you allow the guest to interrupt like that before I have introduced?
I apologize. Sorry.
Wow, shut the fuck up. You're not the host today, Miguel. Okay. Today I'm talking to Miguel Miles, who is usually the host of the podcast, but now we've swapped like a reverse cowgirl. He is now riding me with facing his back against my I don't know. I've never had sex. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Max, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel Myers, and welcome to my horror confessional. Today, we have Max Booth III, author of We Need to Do Something, Touch the Night, and the forthcoming Maggots Screaming. We Need to Do Something was released from IFC Midnight last year and is currently streaming on Hulu. He's also the co-owner of Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing and Ghoulish Books. Also, coming in April, the Ghoulish Book Festival. Max, welcome to the show.
Wow. I don't have an intro like that for you. I don't know much about you.
That's fine. I have literally nothing to talk about.
You do this podcast. You've been doing it how long now? 6 months?
Since September, so do the math.
I'm not doing the math. Don't get me on a podcast and tell me to do math. Okay. You do a podcast. It's called My Horror Confessional. You watch the movie Halloween. What else you got going on?
You know, I have a couple of boxes of comic books that I kind of like. I have some Michael Myers memorabilia. That's about it. So, Max, you actually have a festival coming up in April in San Antonio, right?
Yep.
Sick. So Pretorius. So can you tell me a little bit more about the Ghoulish Book Festival? When it's happening and what's going on there?
Yeah. Ghoulish Book Fest is happening last day of April, first day of May. That weekend that transitions April into May. It's the I don't know why I'm so passionate about the date. It's the halfway point between Halloween. So if you like Halloween and if you like being halfway away from Halloween, this is the fest.
Is that true?
Is that real? It is. Yeah, that's why we picked it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you. It's like if you like those scholastic book feels as a kid, it's gonna be like that, but with the age range being pumped up to I don't know 15. Nah, it's like a spooky scholastic book feel for grown-ups. Lots of spooky books, lots of presses and riddles traveling from all around the country. We're going to have tables. They will sell books at these tables. Miguel is going to have a table. I don't know what he's doing at it, but he's going to have one. I'm going to have panels and live readings of people talking about spooky stuff. And it's in downtown San Antonio, and you can get a badge now at ghoulishbookfest.com.
The way you described it at the beginning there, where it's like a scholastic book festival, but for grown-ups, that's amazing. That sounds so much fun.
I hope it is.
Yeah, it sounds great. So you also going to have some guests on that I've actually had as guests on the show.
Yeah, the three guests of honor include Cynthia Paleo, Lil Hightail, and Shay McKenzie, who I don't think you've had on the show.
I haven't had him on a show. Maybe we can have him on in the future. But yeah, I had Laurel Hightower on just a couple weeks ago, and we did Kronos. And then Cynthia Palayo and I, we talked about The Night of the Hunter. Both of
Yeah.
them are really awesome, really know their horror, and just are great people to talk with. So I can't wait to actually meet them because they're both going to be there. And what's cool is I asked them to come on the show. No, actually, Cynthia Palaya, I just randomly found her on Twitter, probably through maybe a post you shared or something, and I reached out to her. I had no idea of her connection with the Ghoulish Book Festival. And then, are you going to be you? There was another thing that you said you're going to be doing that sounded real fun, the book reading or the story reading thing.
Yes, you will correct. At the Ghoulish Book Festival, we will be doing the debut annual Ghoulish Book Festival Spooky Campfire Storytellers Who Storytelling Contest, aka the AGB FSCSHCSC, not C, S, fuck, the AGB FSCSHSC. That's going to be on Saturday night of the Book Fest. And basically, each contestant will be given a flashlight in up to 5 minutes to tell the spookiest story imaginable in a pitch black room surrounded by an audience. And the winner wins a trophy and bragging points as the spookiest riddle of the fest.
That sounds like so much fun. I can't wait
You
to.
gonna do it?
Yeah. Oh hell no! I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to be an audience member. I will
You
not be
can read
participating.
some Simpsons erotica. It's pretty spooky.
Yeah. So, and then there's also going to be previous guests of this show and on your show. Andrew Hilbert will be there. Zach Chapman's going to be there. I'm actually going to be sharing a table with Zach Chapman where he's going to be selling his book. He's not a writer on it, but he's going to be selling his book, House of Blood, which is a comic book that he spent a lot of time working on. And so I
He
think it's going
spent
to
a
be a
lot of
blast.
time writing it, yes.
Yes, and I think it's going to be a great time. So if you're in San Antonio, if you're anywhere near San Antonio or Austin, Dallas, come on down for that weekend. I think it's going to be a great thing. I'm really excited you guys are putting it on.
Thank you, Miguel. Way to promote me.
No problem. Yeah, you really.
What a good guest.
Max, do you want to explain to my audience what we're doing this week?
Yeah, for some reason, we've decided to switch up the podcast. Usually, the guest, like myself, would be coming on to confess to having never seen some classic movie, right? And then I would have to, like, say, "Oh, Father, forgive me. Let me lick your boots." I don't know what they do in church. But this time, I wanted to talk about The Bride of Frankenstein, which is a movie I've seen many times, and you had never seen, and you've always wanted to see it. You love the Universal monster movies, evidently, but this is one that was just like a blind spot. So we thought it'd be fun if you watched this for the first time, and we did an episode. So would you like to confess to a sin, Miguel?
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Max. I would like to confess to the sin to never having watched The Bride of Frankenstein from 1935, the classic Universal monster movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've never watched it, and I've another confession to make is I am not a big Universal monsters guy.
Why did you told me before you watched this you've always wanted to see this specific one? How come if you were not a fan of Universal monsters, what did you expect?
I expected The Bride of Frankenstein, literally. I did
Yeah,
not expect Frankenstein movie with a little literally 5 minutes at the end of the actual bride.
that
So
is
it was
that
very
is
disappointing.
one negative thing we can say about this movie and agree upon. Not enough bride in a movie called Bride of Frankenstein. Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. And okay, so before we get into it, I do want to stick a little bit to what we normally do, and I did want to talk a little bit about why you wanted to with me about this movie. You have another book coming out next month called Maggots Screaming. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah. the back cover synopsis of the book is pretty simple and vague. I don't have it in front of me, but it said something like, on a hot summer afternoon in San Antonio, Texas, a dad and son bond after discovering three impossible corpses buried in their backyard. So that's all I'm mostly revealing, like non-podcast wise to the public, but because this
Mhm.
is a podcast and dedicated fans might be listening, I can tell a bit more. The um the reason I wanted to talk about Bride of Frankenstein is there's a lot of odd, wacky, mad scientist stuff in this book, and there's mad scientist stuff in the movie as well. And I love just anything to do with mad scientists and like odd experiments gone wrong.
Awesome. Okay, and I understand that you can't really talk a lot about it because it hasn't come out yet. But what is your history with Universal Pictures? Because you've been on before, and typically I ask like, what is your history with horror movies in general? But we've already talked about that. So specifically with like black and white movies or Universal Pictures horror monster movies, what is your history with them?
I got you. You know, I've only began watching those within the last 5 years, maybe. I skipped them completely as a kid because once you like get introduced to the genre with stuff like Evil Dead 2 and Brain Dead, is that the name of it? The Peter Jackson movie,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels odd to like step back and then watch those Universal monster movies. Like you should begin with those, if anything, I think. So, I live with a woman who has a son you've met, a son you've seen the movie Jackass with, a son who your mutual friend Zach keeps texting, and he isn't the biggest fan of the genre. Well, he especially in the past he used to despise any horror movie. He would be too afraid to watch them when he was a bit younger. But I wanted to get him to like it because I don't know, I love it, and I think he would too if given the right like movies to watch. So I thought, okay, let's check out these Universal monster movies because those are pretty tame, not like exactly jump skills and lots of graphic violence. So I took him to see what's that fucking fish boy movie? The creature
The
from the
Creature from
Black
the Black
Lagoon.
Lagoon.
Yeah, the Fish Boy. I took him to see that at the Alamo Draft House because they were playing it, and he loved it, and so did I. I had never seen it either, and that kind of began our obsession with watching all of those. We eventually bought a bunch of them on DVD. So yeah, just watching those Universal monster movies with Dylan, the boy I mentioned, that's mainly my experience with them. And Bride of Frankenstein, obviously, just it was gonna come up eventually, and I think I love it. Yeah, I think it's one of the best sequels ever made, even though there's not enough Bride for a movie called Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, like it was, isn't it like I know the iconic imagery of the bride. Everybody has seen it. You know, the long black hair,
Yeah,
like the Marge beehive style with the white streaks, which in researching for this episode, that hair is actually red.
is
It's
it?
shocking red hair, yeah. But they filmed it, they colored it that way so that when they filmed it, it came out black.
That's cool. I didn't know
So
that.
so even like that's a process they used to do in the black and white era. Even like for the Adams family, I don't know if
Yeah,
you ever, all
uh,
their living
yeah,
room was like pink and looked
yeah.
ugly, but it shot black and white and looked amazing.
I've seen
But
those photos. It's still so funny. I
yeah,
recommend anyone listening to like Google Adam's family house kettle pictures or something. It's really shocking to the system to see that if you've like grown up watching that show. It's like how could the actors like maintain that gloominess being in a room like that? I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, like
So
watching I'm the host, Miguel. Quiet.
sorry, go ahead.
Every time I do watch this movie, I do have this moment of shock was like, okay, where the fuck is this bride at? Then we finally get the bride, and then the movie's over within a few minutes. It's like, what the fuck? It's something I always forget about until I revisit it.
Yeah, and I couldn't. For me, it's unforgivable. Like I, I saw the movie and I see what they did with it, and I like some parts of it. But to me, that ending is the fact that she's only in it and for the last 5 minutes is unforgivable, and I hate this movie because of it. I'm not
Calm
saying I
down,
hate
Miguel.
it. I'm not saying that it's a terrible movie and like it's 1.5 stars. I'm not saying I understand its intrinsic value. To me personally, though, I hate that it made that choice. You know.
What's even stranger, I feel, because I haven't read the book. I want to, I just haven't, due to life choices, I guess. But I was reading that, like, the Bride of Frankenstein stuff is also taken from the book. But Dr. Frankenstein, he, like, as he's creating this bride, I think what happens is he's, like, disgusted with what she could possibly become, and he just destroys the specimen before, like, advancing too deep into the stage of reanimating a bride. So the people who made this movie, they took that tiny aspect from the book, which wasn't used in the original movie adaptation, and they just kind of went, well, what if he did do that? Which is a cool idea, but why do you not, like, continue to think more about that? Why do you just do, what if he does do that, and then the movie ends? Like,
Yeah,
why isn't that in, like, act one?
and I know I'm your guest here, and I'm sorry to be that shithead guest, but
Oh shit.
technically he's not a doctor in the book. He's actually left medical school because
Oh
he realizes that they don't have anything to teach him. So
yeah.
he's not Dr.
Have you
Frankenstein.
read the book?
I have read the book, yes.
Oh, please. I mean, tell me about it.
Oh fuck, it was in high school. I don't remember shit about it. But no, you are right. What you're saying is right. It's like a throwaway line or
Okay.
a part of the book in that he was going to make a bride, but he decided not to. He decided to
What did
avoid
you
it.
think of the book?
I mean, I remember loving it as much as any like 17-year-old kid can love it. Even though like she was like 16 when she wrote it, which is fucking
Pretty,
amazing.
yeah, pretty cool. What did you think of the original adaptation? Do you like that one? Well, no.
The original Frankenstein, like
Yeah,
with Boris Karloff.
Frankenstein. Yeah, Steen.
Are we doing this the whole time?
Yeah,
Are we gonna do this? Are we gonna do this bit
yeah,
where I say Frankenstein and you say Frankenstein? Okay.
yeah.
All right. I liked it. That one was fine. I don't remember being too blown away by it. My favorite Universal horror is The Invisible Man, and I like that one. What I remember it being less of a comedy. This had comedic elements to it. Like the
Mm-hmm.
tone. There was shifting tones that just didn't work for me. For example, the comedic tone of like when
Who?
Frankenstein when
Steen?
Frankenstein's like what's that guy's name, Pretorius, or so when Pretorius is like showing Frankenstein his cavalcade of monsters or whatever, these little miniatures that he had going on here, like it was like comical, and it was like farcical, or not farcical, but like fanciful, where like he was taking them all off the dome, the coverings over the dome, and it was like whimsical music playing, and it's like, what
Yeah.
is happening right now? Why is this in here? Now I understand that technically, like the technique involved to do that was you had to be very, very proficient, and it's handled very well. I understand that part of the skill level that comes into it. I understand. I don't think the scene was necessary, or they could have made the monsters scary. They weren't even monsters. It was a king and a queen, some sort of mermaid thing, and so I don't something else. I don't know. It
It was
just
like
seemed.
sea, it's like a bunch of sea monkeys
Yeah, well, no, they were actual creatures. They were like it was like miniatures. They were
just
miniatures of people.
swimming in, like, a little tiny.
So Max, it's been a couple months since you've seen this. I know,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I don't recall this scene at all.
no. All right, so
Pretilius.
well, no, well, let's we, we'll get to it. Let's fucking start talking. Max Booth III. If you don't mind, I'd like to introduce the movie, who was directed by, written by, things like that. Would that be okay as a guest to do that, or is that too forward?
I'll allow it.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. So we're talking The Bride of Frankenstein from 1935, directed by James Whale, and this actually has almost 12 writing credits, including story by, adapted by, screenplay by. So I said, fuck that. Written by Mary Shelley, because it's suggested in her original story, which was written in 1816. Starring Boris Karloff as the monster. He was also, obviously, he's a fucking legend. He's been in Frankenstein. He was in The Mummy, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's also starring Elsa Lang. I don't know, this is an English name, so it might be Elsa Lanchester as Mary Shelley, but she also does double duty as the monster's mate. She was in Witness for the Prosecution and Mary Poppins. It's starring Colin Clive as Henry Frankenstein, Colin Clive as Henry Frankenstein, Valerie Hobson as Elizabeth. When The Bride of Frankenstein was filmed, Mae Clark, who was from the who played Elizabeth in the original Frankenstein, she was sick. She'd fallen ill. So Valerie Hobson had to reprise the role, and she was only 17 years old when she did this. And like yours, okay, now we can talk about how it started.
Look what I have. You impressed?
I'm pretty impressed.
You
Yeah.
want to describe it for the audience, or do you just want them to
No, I will
assume?
not be. Currently, the host of the show is showing me a Frankenstein dolly that he goes to sleep with.
It's actually one of those. You will see those things that like it comes in a can, and it's like scented. The little plush item is scented. And you take it out of the can and you just hang it from something, and it's supposed to make the spot you hang it smell like that scent. Like this is supposed to be like some type of fucking caramel apple. I don't know. Doesn't smell
What
like
the
anything to
fuck
me.
are you talking about?
So I'll bring us back on topic quickly.
All
Now I'll
right.
wait and ask this question until the end because I do have a question about um, the monster's dong, but I don't know how it makes sense to ask that just yet. So, yes, proceed, Miguel.
Well, you were talking about how the movie starts, and it starts in a really interesting way.
Yeah, in the so for the kids listening now, there used to be a thing called Facebook, but they recently changed the name to Meta, and that is basically the only way to describe the opening of Bride of Frankenstein is meta. We have three folks who will not in the movie. Uh, Chelsea Shelley, Lil Byron, and I believe Millie Shelley. This whole name. The three of them will sitting around this fucking fancy rich guy living room, right? Like there's like a dead animal on the ground who's been skinned. Looks like a fireplace going, and they have like big bookshelves like rich people do, and they're sipping from tiny glasses of alcohol. And the two men are like, "Ooh ah, Millie Shelley, ooh, good job writing that spooky, silly Frankenstein. What a delight that was." And she's like, ah, thank you so much. That's how she sounds. But then she's like, oh, but there's more to this story. I have to tell you. And that's when we go into, into Bride of Frankenstein 2, which is the original title.
Electric Boogaloo. So,
I mean, if anything was going to have the really electric in the title, you would think it would be a Frankenstein movie, right?
yeah, exactly. The thing that I wanted to say from this prologue
Yeah.
is that if you know two things. One, so this movie had to go through the censors, and one of the scenes, one of the cuts in the scenes, yeah, one of the things that was cut from the scene was a shot where apparently there was like there was too much of her breasts being shown, and so the censors asked to cut that, which whatever. But then there was another part where I forgot. Disregard. But
I know what you were gonna say because I read that too. There's a scene in the opening where Byron and Chelsea Shelley, well, basically doing what's called in the biz a DP on Millie Shelley, and that was really frowned upon back in the day. They were like 1p okay, Two peas? Absolutely not, friend.
So they didn't actually film it, but it was implied, right?
It was in the script.
Yeah, it was I don't think it was in the script, but it was implied. And they actually, when they're pulling out of the shot at the end of that scene, um,
What? Wait, which one of them is peeling out?
nice,
Both of
really
them?
nice. The
Thank you.
camera
Thank you.
is yeah, the camera is pulling out of this of that shot. At the end of that shot, Shelley and Byron are on either side of Mary Shelley. And that actually is mirrored at the end of the movie when we have Frankenstein and Pretorius bookending. What do we call her? Is it the female monster? The
The
bride?
bride.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in the title of the movie, Miguel.
You're right. You're right. I'm slipping. So they're bookending her as well. So it's kind of mirroring the epilogue and it's not really a prologue, but the end of the movie. Nope, sorry, the prologue and the epilogue. So they get into it, and then it flashes back to scenes from Frankenstein from 1931, and it leads us
It begins, build, ends, right?
right,
Uh,
and which is really cool because I was always, because I'm a Halloween fiend, I'm a Halloween head, like I always thought that it was so cool that Halloween 2 picked up right where Halloween 1 ended, and I was like, I haven't seen that a lot. Well, it's right fucking here. They
you
did
should
it here.
fucking love this movie, man. This is just like Halloween 2.
Yeah, just like it. But I thought that was kind of cool, where it kind of were right back at the beginning. And you've seen Frankenstein, correct?
Yeah, a few times.
Okay, so there was so refresh my memory because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but there was a fire at the end of it, right? And
Yeah, he runs up. It's been a while since I've seen it as well. He runs up the fucking steps of like this watchtower or something, being chased by the village olds, and they set it on fire, and supposedly he burns to death.
it burns to
Right?
death, and so does Henry Frankenstein. So
Yeah.
that's where it ends, where part one ends.
Either
And
either Henry burns to death or the monster throws him out of the window. I can't recall which one it is.
that's true. Yeah, that's right. That's what happens. But so we're led to believe that both of them die, but in fact they both live. So
You ever see or read Stephen King's Misery?
I've seen Misery. I haven't read it now.
Okay, that's fine. It kind of reminds me of that rant that Kathy Bates goes on about how like you ever go to those movies and you see someone is about to die, and then next week it suddenly changes as if you didn't see the last movie, and they change the whole hunky dory flipping monkey whatever how she calls this, I forget now exactly, but it kind of
Uh-huh.
reminds me of that. Well, we see one way, and then we get to the second Frankenstein movie, and they've just acting like people are just idiots, right? They've just swapped it out.
Which is like what every slasher has ever done, and every slasher franchise, including Halloween. But Jason and Freddy, they do all that shit. They die at the end, and then the next movie, you're like, we're just kidding. They're actually alive. That sort of thing. So that it's not something new to a horror fan, but here was perhaps one of the first times that it's happened.
Yeah.
So then, after the mill collapses, it seems the monster's been destroyed. The Burgomeister, which I want, I'm going to say Burgermeister, but a Burgomeister, I looked it up, is just means a mayor, the mayor of this town, urges everyone to return to their homes. But the father, played by Reginald Barlow, of the little girl whom the monster killed accidentally in the first film, wants to see the creature's dead body with his own eyes before he can have any peace. This guy was a fucking idiot. I'm happy he died, because his wife tries to stop him, but when the man wanders through the still burning debris, he falls through a hole that leads to a flooded cavern before the mill.
Mm-hmm.
The monster rises out of the water and kills the poor man. This was a cool scene. I like this part. Like, this was promising. This looked very like the set design for this movie is great. It's still German expressionistic, similar to movies we've covered. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, that sort of thing. So I love that aesthetic. It just doesn't live up to its set design, its potential for me. So then,
I got something. Do you think you said you will glad the guy died? Will you also glad his kid died?
you know what? I'm going to take a hard stance on this. I've said it before on this podcast. Fuck them kids. So yes, I will say I'm glad she died.
Yeah, I agree. I
You can't
love that.
cancel me. I'm uncancelable.
I love that scene in the original movie where he just fucking drowns that kid. It's so great. I mean, I know we're talking about the Bride movie, but let's talk about real fast just that scene from the original because I love it because it's just it's such an innocent scene. Like just this supposed monster is living like a child. It's like just this childlike joy playing with another kid experiencing life and having fun, and then he fucking kills the kid on accident. It kind of like it reminds me of something that happens to a lot of kids. I think, will they accidentally like kill an animal when they were really young? Like I recall having a python when I was a kid. And I fell asleep with it. And I woke up and the fucking snake was dead because I slept on it. And it terrified me. And like
Jesus
it's
Christ.
kind of like that in a way.
You are currently writing a memoir, yes? Or
Kind of,
something
yeah.
similar to a
Yeah,
memoir?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to order a couple copies of, of that book because the stories of you that you tell me of you growing up are amazing. And I hadn't even heard that Python story yet.
I have two dead python stories. The second one sounds like I'm lying. No one believes me when I tell them this, but it's what my memory believes to be fact. So maybe I made this up, and then I convinced myself it was true. Well, maybe it happened. But after I fell asleep on that python, my my dad took it back to the pet store because it was day one of getting it. He was like, "My son slept on this and he died, and now he's traumatized. Can we get a replacement?" And they gave him a new one, and that snake was really good. Lasted several months until, like fucking one day I went into like to check on the cage or the fucking terrarium, and the snake no longer had any eyeballs and it was dead. And the mouse I had dropped in was still alive. The mouse killed the snake. It doesn't sounds fake, but that's what I remember happening.
Okay. So you're saying that the mouse protected itself by eating the snake's eyes.
Yes.
That's fucking metal as fuck, dude.
I
That's
know. I
crazy.
We let that mouse go. It won.
It fought for its life and it won. So you let it go. That's only fair.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to know. Aren't pythons huge snakes? So you got a baby python?
Yeah, baby ball pythons is what they're called. They're just ball pythons, I guess.
So
Well,
you
pretty small.
smothered a baby
I
python.
smothered. I mean, it wasn't the first baby I've smothered, but the first snake, yes,
Okay, and it wasn't the last baby either?
that I know of.
All right, so how do we get this fucking started? Oh, talking about that, I don't remember, but
Oh, because we were talking about Frankenstein killing that kid
right, right,
in
right.
the original. So yeah, the dad dies in Bride of Frankenstein. He strangles him, then escapes. The wife of the dead husband, she's like ah, and then she runs away. We don't see her again. I don't think.
No, he kills the wife. The character you're thinking about is the hysterical servant, Minnie,
Oh, okay,
played by Una O'Connor. This fucking character, I was so pissed off at her. She's so fucking annoying. Like,
dude,
I,
the
I
monster kills his whole family. This dude is a family annihilator.
yeah, he killed the daughter, the father, and then the mother. That's fucked.
He hates his family. I'm fascinated by like when like an entire family just dies and that's just like the end of the line. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I find that cool because that's the wrong word choice. I'm really interested in it.
Yeah, well, that's what he fucking does to that family, that
He
poor
fucking
family.
annihilates that family. No more, nothing will happen now unless it's like some fucking brother who's like, "Wow, when does this take place?" It's all like some fucking battle going on, Samuel, like the Breville could be fighting at. He comes back home. He's like, "What? A fucking reanimated corpse killed my whole family? What's going on?"
Oh shit! It's like, what the fuck are you? He would never believe anybody told him that. What are you talking about?
Like, what really happened? Did you guys kill my family?
Just all right. So then they take Henry Frankenstein's body to Elizabeth at the castle where they live in, and she's crying and all that, and they think he's dead, but he wakes up and he's alive, and that fucking servant Minnie is like, he's alive, yelling. I hate that character. Worst character in a film I've seen in very, very long time. And it has no place. Like what the the tone of that character and that's what it's so uneven, tonally uneven. This movie is. But so anyway, so he's found to be alive, and he wants nothing more than to settle into a peaceful life with his bride, with his new bride. And so that was a question I had for you, something that me and Hillary, my wife, talked about a little bit. What do you think? Who do you think they're referring to with the title "The Bride of Frankenstein"? Are we talking
Oh,
about Henry's new wife, or the monster's bride?
I think we're just talking about the concept of a mate,
Mm-hmm.
because we approach multiple wives, right? We have the Doctor's bride, and then we have the monstrel's desire to have a mate as well.
Yeah. So then, suddenly, his old professor, the sinister Doctor
Wait,
Pretorius.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
this doctor is like, okay, let's just lay low now and have a calm life. If you had successfully reanimated the dead and then was like thrown from a fucking cliff or something and still lived, would you be able to do that, or would you be like, well, what can I do now? I am God. Like, how is he so calm about this?
Well, two things. One, depends on your definition of the term successful, right? Because
It came to life.
yeah, I know, but at what cost? And
It
how
came to
does this?
life.
I agree. I agree with you. But also the other thing is what you were talking about, Frankenstein being God, or close to God. That's another thing that the censors didn't like, is there was references to Frankenstein considering himself as good as God, or whatever the case may be, as powerful as God, and they wanted that stripped as well. But I would have liked to see that too, because that's interesting. As of right now, we have this like neutered Frankenstein who doesn't really do anything in this movie. And in fact, the um, what's his name, Colin Clive, who played him, actually injured himself before he filmed the movie, and so he couldn't walk, and so that's why most of his scenes are like of him in bed, or of him being in motion, like seated or something like that, because he couldn't do anything.
Do you know
So I don't
how
know.
he injured himself?
I think he was jumping off of a cliff in a motorcycle to impress his son.
That can't be true.
And he almost made it too.
To impress his son. Oh, I get it now. God damn it! It took me a moment. I just felt like that was so quick and specific of you. Like, maybe it is true.
No.
Yeah,
But I don't know how he was injured. But
yeah.
so I don't know. The character isn't very interesting, but the Pretorius, and we'll get this into this a little bit later when we're talking about the quote unquote gay coding of this character. But apparently, Dr. Pretorius, played by Ernest Thesiger, was supposed to be gay, coded as gay,
Okay.
because of the high camp value of his character.
Do
So
you?
I have a whole section. Yeah,
I'm still thinking about like this doctor believing he's God, and like if they had embraced that and they didn't have like the censors involved, do you think it could have been closer to something like Bruce Almighty? Did you see that movie?
I've seen that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, like do you think he could have been like Granny Millfields and stuff, and like just walking around town going, "I am God," like typing really fast at his computer? But he would have had to invent computers because he is God.
Yeah, I don't. I think he would have, probably. You seen Frankenhooker?
Oh yeah.
I think it would have been more like the end of. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen Frankenhooker, it would be more like the end of Frankenhooker, where there's just a bunch of torso bodies running around and like
Yeah.
killing people, sort of thing, more than anything else, Or what's worse, would have turned into some sort of eugenics thing where they're trying to build the master race, the perfect race. So, but I did want to address the whole the gay coding thing a little bit later. So I just want to get through the plot now, and then we can return back to it. But so Dr. Pretorius, he's disgraced, and he appears unexpectedly, and convinces him to continue his work of Frankenstein's work of creating new life. Pretorius has been conducting his own experiments, but can do no better than to create people who are a few inches tall. So this is that scene that I was telling you about, where he's like, "Come to my apartment." Later on, okay. Before I forget, I have to say this. Part of the queer coding thing that they're talking about is that on his wedding night, on Frankenstein's wedding night, Dr. Pretorius comes to his home and like stops his time with his wife and says, "Come to my apartment instead."
Yeah.
And so there's
And
like,
fuck my brains out.
yes. Oh, and obviously, I didn't even say this, but the director, James Whale, was an openly gay man in the 30s.
Yeah.
And
Pretty
so,
awesome.
yeah, and this is one of the things that angers me is that
Oh.
angers me. Now, one of the things that
How dare he be openly gay?
I love it. I love it. No, one of the things that angers me is that people think that a straight white man, could just make whatever movie he wants, but a gay man has to make a movie with gay subtext, or a person of color has to make movies referencing civil rights or something like that. Like they're allowed to just make movies to make movies. So,
Yeah.
so I don't think I don't subscribe any gay subtext to this movie. However, I'm not in that culture, or I'm not a gay person, so it's just my opinion. Others can see it, but I don't see it, and I don't like when people say because he was gay he had to have some subtext. That sort of thing. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on any gay subtext in the movie at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand wanting to look for things when they're not there, or adding things to the context to make it fit you, because like I am a person of color and I love horror movies, and for the majority of time up until just including a few years ago, there weren't a lot of people of color in movies making their movies, being cast as regulars or whatever, or leading people, and now they are. But in the past, I've like latched onto characters who weren't necessarily the best characters just because they were people of color. So I get that. I just don't see it here. But we can talk about it when we get there. But the weird thing about this scene with Pretorius at the apartment is they're little humans. It's weird.
The thing about like I get the gay subtext deal because like every gay person I know has a collection of tiny humans like in a box.
Yeah.
That's just like classic gay dudes
See, they
behavior.
must have really. Your friends must really like you, because I know that's a secret in gay culture.
Yeah.
So if you
I,
let
I'm
somebody
giving
in
out
on
some
that,
gay. I'm giving out some gay secrets right now. Like, if you ever see someone who has just like a box of tiny humans, that person is gay as fuck.
none of this. That
No,
was me.
this is gold.
Maybe I'll think
Let
about
me
it.
let me let me tell you a fucking pet peeve I have with doing podcasts with anyone besides my own podcast. Every time I say anything that's gold, they always come back with, "Yeah, we got to cut that." Why? Stop cutting my material, god damn it.
There's nobody more censored in this world than straight white men, and I'm
Thank
seeing
you.
I'm seeing the pain in your eyes, Max. You're just telling it like it is, and people are taking it incorrectly.
People keep fucking silencing me. Like I keep going to my fucking sold out comedy shows day in and day night. And I tell the audience like no one will give me a fucking way to say my opinions. And they agree with me. All like the thousands of people listening to me at my shows, they nod their heads in agreement, and they know I am being silenced.
This has been the Joe Rogan podcast.
Let's talk about vaccines. Do you think Frankenstein would have been pro-vax? I mean, he is a scientist.
Yeah, I think so. But the monster, anti-vax.
Yeah, which one would be in the NFTs? Dude,
Pretorius.
Frankenstein would love fucking NFTs. He would be like, what if I took a bunch of NFTs and combined them into one?
It made a living NFT.
Yeah, that'd
That's
be
dope.
pretty cool. And then it killed a kid.
And then they made a movie about that, and then we're right back here talking about it.
Miguel's gonna cut this too. Watch.
It's all done. It's all... You know what? When we recorded Return of the Living Dead, I think it was like 3.5 hours, and I cut it down to 2.5 hours. So about an hour of what you're saying right now will be cut. So feel free to say anything you want to say.
I'm not doing podcasts anymore unless I control the editing.
As the guest, I'd like your permission to get back to the script.
You may.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So yeah, so I just didn't like this scene. This scene felt from another movie where all the little humans are in a jar. You know, he was able to grow them. It just seems very weird. But anyway,
I
so
have
that
to say, I don't fucking remember this at
you
all.
want to pause it for a second and fast forward
I've
the
seen
video.
this movie like 5 times. Okay,
So
I
you
haven't
must
seen
have fallen asleep.
the last time I saw this was probably October. I have no idea what you were talking about.
So
Tiny
do you,
humans.
in a jar, in a bell jar, there's like 5 of them.
Okay, I'm googling Bride of Frankenstein. Leave all this in. Tiny humans in a jar. Little People 720p. I'm watching it. Hold on. It's the Little People scene. Leave all this in.
None of it. I mean, all of it will be in.
I forgot about this.
Do you remember
It's
it
just
now?
yeah. Why is this in this scene? Yeah, you're right. It makes no sense to be in this movie. It looks so stupid. Wow, just like kings and queens, tiny kings.
But there is one cool thing that we were able to take from this is that the queen
Yeah,
is rejecting the king in
yeah,
this scene. Like she's like trying to back him away. He's like trying to come to her, and that's the same thing that happens at the end of the movie
yeah.
where
Let me.
Frankenstein is.
I'm in the industry, so I'll let you know. In the biz, that's what we call foreshadowing.
Yes, but they could have done some. They didn't need this. Yeah, it's just so weird. It didn't need to be in a movie. It needed to be in another movie. But so
It
this
doesn't
kind of
need to be in any movie. It looks stealable. It's really odd. It makes not a lot of sense. Like, does it come back in the movie at all? I can't recall.
only in that Pretorius's research leads him to be able to grow a brain, which is what they use to put into the bride.
I feel like if you have these tiny people in these containers, they need to escape at some point and become violent.
And that'd be another great movie.
They could
You know?
join up with the monster and like fucking wreck some shit.
All right. So soon the village learns that the monster is still alive and they capture him. But I like this scene because they're chasing him through the woods and
Yeah,
they tie him down. Um, they tie him down onto this large
it's like a pole, right? Like
tree.
it's a
Yeah, like a
fucking
pole.
street light or something, whatever they have.
Yeah, well, not street light, but it's just like a log. A fucking log is the word I was looking for.
Yeah, and they
And
take him to a dungeon or something, right?
but before they do, they lift him up, and you get this Christ imagery that I want to talk about a little bit later, where he's like he's tied and he's got his hands out, and it looks like Christ on the cross.
Yeah.
And then they drop him and they drop him into the cart, and they wheel him over to the dungeon, and they put him in there, and almost immediately he escapes. Like absolutely immediately he escapes.
Now, Christ on the cross. That's something my dad used to yell whenever he was pissed about something. What he would yell, "Christ on the cross."
I my dad would say fiddlesticks.
That's hilarious.
but in Spanish.
How do you say it?
Fiddlesticks.
In Spanish, that's how you say it?
Yes.
What do you mean? Really?
No. That's not how you say it.
What are you saying then? How do you say it in Spanish? God damn it.
I have no idea. My dad didn't really say that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I believed it.
I know you did, and I appreciate that.
I'm going to
So,
Google how to say it in Spanish since you know how to.
Spanish translation?
In Spanish. Okay. Pelos de violin. That's what it says.
Fiddlesticks is better, I think. That's probably why he
I
said it. So that's why he
I
said it so
think
much.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so the creature escapes, and this was a cool scene too because it shows, like his strength. He's able to pull out his iron or whatever crutches or not crutches, iron shackles, and escapes the prison. And then
Strong boy.
he's a very strong boy, and he just goes about killing people. He kills another little girl here as well. That
Fuck yeah.
sucks. And then he goes out into the forest, and the monster discovers an isolated cabin occupied by an old blind hermit played by O.P. Hedgie,
Now
who is off.
this is my favorite scene of the movie. When I think of this movie and why I like it, I think of this scene specifically.
Yeah, the old man is playing violin. I love this scene, but you know what? I loved it more in Young Frankenstein. Have you,
How does it play out in Young Frankenstein? Remind
it
me.
plays almost exactly the same way, but like when the hermit goes in this movie, when the hermit goes to grab some soup, he like gives it to
Oh,
Frankenstein, but
he's
he keeps
feeding it. It's like really hot, right?
yeah, and he keeps spilling it on him and stuff like that. He goes to give him a cigar and instead lights his finger,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Yeah, man,
Um,
like
I assume we'll talk about Young Frankenstein later, but that movie is just like an all-time movie for me.
I
So
love it.
good.
It's one of my favorite movies. Like that movie is way better than this movie. Like way better.
Absolutely, without
Yeah,
question.
yeah. So all right, but this is a really nice scene, and I actually did enjoy this scene. The creature and the lonely hermit soon become friends as the old man teaches the monster the joys of music, cigars, bread, and wine. And with the bread and wine, that's also some Christian imagery, right? Because the bread and wine is the body of Christ and the blood of Christ.
If you say so.
Yes, sir. So then the monster understands human speech and soon learns to speak himself a little bit, little words. And then they've both finally found happiness, which is dashed when two travelers stop by to ask directions. They recognize the monster and attack him, inadvertently burning down the hermit's cabin in the battle. The monster runs away miserable once again.
And
So
I'm
how
sure
long
the
do you think?
monster gets blamed for building this down too. It wasn't even him.
Right, right. But I mean, he has maybe this wasn't his fault, but he has already killed one child and has killed
That's
a
fine.
lot of people. So how long do you think they were together here? Like, because he taught him how to, talk a couple words. I would think a couple weeks at least.
I thought it was like 20 minutes, man. You
So
think it's built in one day?
I think it's got to be at least more than one day because it
I
would
don't
be
think so.
devastating to me to think that within 20 minutes this hermit has taught Frankenstein just through patience a lot of words and phrases. And so if Frankenstein, the creator, Henry Frankenstein, had just taken some time and taken 45 minutes, sat the
Yeah.
monster down and be like, hey, this is what's going on. Here are some words you need to know. He could have survived and it could have been a different story. So
Well, I
I
think that's the
like,
point.
yeah,
Isn't that the point of the
that's
whole fucking
depressing.
movie? That
That's
he
fucking,
comes across like one person who treats him like a human because he can't see him? And look at what
yeah,
happens like in one afternoon. I think if it took place more than one day, we would see them like sleeping together. I mean, not like that, but
yes,
I mean, maybe I don't know. But they would. I mean, we would see more of that scene. I think, but I think it's just like an afternoon, like one evening.
that's depressing
Yeah,
because
dude.
yeah, this old this old hermit who can't see and this monster who can't talk, they become friends. It's a little bit, it's beautiful in its own way, but it's soon dashed by when other humans come in and just fucking ruin it like always because humans suck.
Yeah.
And so the monster runs away, And then Dr. Pretorius, in the meantime, Dr. Pretorius is basically employing these two ghouls. You should know them. These two ghouls who are, because you know the literal definition of ghouls.
Are you asking
No?
me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
No, what? You tell me.
It's people who rob graves and grave
I
sites.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's a ghoul.
Interesting.
So he hires these two ghouls to help him steal bodies for his work with Henry Frankenstein.
Yeah, because Henry's like, I don't want anything to do with this. But his old, he's like a teacher now. He was his teacher, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Pretilius. He's like, nah, you did so good. We gotta continue the business. Like almost like The Godfather or something. Like, you can picture Al Pacino being like, as soon as I get out, they drag me back in. That's how he sounds in that movie.
Verbatim. So for my
Yeah,
audience, that clip you just heard was from the movie.
yeah. We did a
I
little
just
cut
edited it.
edit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's basically the same thing.
Hold on one second. Do you want
Me?
to take a break for a second? I'm gonna go pee. Give me a second,
No.
please.
I guess.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. So Pretorius is using these ghouls to get bodies to advance his purpose of creating the bride. So there's a
He
chance. Yeah.
he came with this intent plan to create a mate for the monster.
Mm.
I have a few questions. How did he find out that his student succeeded already? Like, did Elizabeth write him a letter? Like, it wasn't in the fucking Daily News. Like, what? How does he know about this?
I mean, in small town, wherever the fuck they are in Eastern Europe, somewhere like that shit flies very quickly. Like there are no secrets in small towns, right? So I'm sure that
What?
shit.
I thought Pretilius like traveled from a great distance to come back to this town. Am I wrong in my memory, Phil?
I don't think that they said that he traveled a great distance. He just was, but I would assume you're correct because Frankenstein was studying when he came back,
Yeah.
and so he was studying far away, and he came back. So if Dr. Pretorius is his teacher, he would be far away. Yeah,
But maybe it was like a newspaper he read. But like, what was the
yeah.
newspaper? Like, small town mad scientist creates abomination, kills child, dies in flaming inferno. I
I
don't
think you
know.
got it. You got it right there.
And then, so he reads this newspaper, and his first thought is, "I'm gonna go to this town. I'm gonna find this monster, and I'm gonna watch him fuck something."
I want him to be able to have the choice to.
Okay.
So a chance meeting in a tomb brings Dr. Pretorius and the monster together, and Pretorius uses the monster to kidnap the Mrs. Frankenstein and blackmail Henry into returning to his castle and continuing his experiments. And the monster wants his creator to build him a friend, and Pretorius wants to see dead tissue become a living woman. Henry is forced to give his creature a bride. Henry and Pretorius succeed in following the creation of man with the creation of woman, played again by Elsa Lanchester again. But the woman is not happy with the man, and she backs away from him, hissing in horror and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the monster is despondent. He frees Henry and his wife, and then releases a lever that blows the castle to atoms, thus destroying himself, his
Oh,
bride,
hold on.
and Dr. Pretorius. And he says, "Yes, go, you live, go." And to Pretorius, he says, "You stay, we belong dead."
Yeah, there you go. You can't just skip over all those lines.
Yeah.
You know, I feel I misremembered some of this as well because I was thinking that the reanimated bride was actually Frankenstein's wife, Elizabeth. I thought somehow she died and then they reanimated her, but
Mm,
that's not true at all. I misremembered it.
yeah.
I think maybe I mean we'll talk about this in a few about like the different Frankenstein spin-off movies and like the inspired Frankenstein inspired movies. But it's possible I kind of got that mixed up with Frankenhooker, which is what happens in that movie.
Yeah. So I hate that. Well, so that's the end of the movie.
The end.
So
Okay, so Miguel, what did you actually? I kind of fucked up in the beginning. I should have asked this, but I'm going to ask it now. Why do you think you've missed this movie so long?
thank you, thanks. I appreciate that. I think because I'm not a big Universal horror fan, and but of the Universal horror movies that I wanted to see that I still haven't seen, this was at the top of my list. And
Oh,
I even had like I had a couple of Mondo posters. You know who Mondo is, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah. So I had a couple of Mondo posters of the Bride of Frankenstein that I've eventually already sold, but I had them
Oh,
for a couple of years. I sold them for a couple $100, so I was kind of happy about that.
you could
But
have
like,
given them to me.
I could have either given them to you or sold them for a couple $100. So,
Tough,
I
tough
had
choice.
yeah, very tough. I had these things, and I know I've seen it in pop culture, so I wanted to check it out, and I just never did. And today was one of those, or yeah, I actually watched it yesterday. I was really happy to be able to get a chance to watch it because it's a hole in my horror fandom that I had that I'm really glad I've finally um, filled. I'm glad I filled this hole.
You keep going.
Yeah,
So, what else is on that list of Universal monster movies you want to check out now? Maybe you don't want to check out any after this one. I don't know.
honestly, I'm very disappointed in this one.
Yeah. Have you seen like Creature of the Black Lagoon?
I saw Creature of the Black Lagoon it was before pre-COVID at the Draft House. They played it 3D for a Terror Tuesday one
Hmm.
time, and we fucking loved it. It was so much
Okay, good.
fun.
Yeah,
Like that's a
I love
great
that one.
movie.
Yeah. I mean, I like this one too a lot. So, I mean, so I guess I should ask you what you thought of it now that you've seen it. But I will,
Yeah.
for the audience, I will read the chat log that you sent me after you saw the movie. So you texted me the following at 11:35 p.m. Bride of Frankenstein, 1935, James Well, Bill Skolaf, right? I said, yeah. You said, okay, just finished it. I said, what did you think? You said, am I a joke to you? I said, what are you talking about? You said, save it for the podcast booth. Now, my question is, do you mean podcast, comma, booth, as in my last name? Well, do you have an actual podcast booth?
It's actually both. I have a podcast booth, and I was saying save it for the podcast booth.
Mm.
And
And
when
then
I
I
said, "Am
said,
I?" Okay, go ahead.
and then I said, you didn't like it? And you said, I'm going to shit in your mouth. End of chat.
So I think okay. So what do I think of this movie right now? It had a lot of potential, and it didn't live up to it, and it had a lot of hype also, because you said that it was the best sequel to any horror film, or right? You're saying it's the best
It's
sequel
one.
ever
It's
made.
one. It's one of the best sequels. I think. I stand by that.
I just there's a whole scene that you didn't remember that when you remembered it, you're like, oh yeah, this shouldn't be in here, and yet you're
I don't know.
standing on that. Like
Yeah,
it's
I'm standing by it.
okay, cool. So you hyped it up a lot. Zach, friend of the show, Zach Chapman hyped it up a lot, and also just pop culture hyped it up a lot. And I don't think there was any way it could have lived up to it.
I think that might be why you hate it. Like when I watched it a few years back, I don't think I had ever like read up or heard anyone really talk about it. So I just kind of threw it on, and I just really liked it a lot.
Well,
So maybe I didn't have that hype train going on with me.
so what is it that you liked about it? Maybe you can tell me that.
Nope.
Well, here I can tell you one thing that I hated. I hate that the monster lets Henry Frankenstein leave at the
Yeah.
end. He's responsible. Henry Frankenstein is responsible for the monster's suffering, and he lets him leave. And
Hmm.
it's like I have this anti-natalism view of that. Like, are you familiar with anti-natalism?
Yes, but for the audience, let's tell them.
Okay. So it's an ethical view that negatively values procreation. So antinatalists argue that humans should abstain from procreation because it is morally wrong, because the child didn't ask to be born, basically.
Okay.
And
Sounds like
so
some
it's more
incel stuff.
and so it's morally wrong to do it. And so morally wrong to procreate. And to expand from that, it's morally wrong to create life, which is what Frankenstein did. And so
Yeah.
he created this life, and then he lets it loose in the world without taking 45 minutes to give him a user's manual on the world, and then he gets to live and the monster dies. Like I just
Yeah.
hate the thought of that. It's so like that's just that on top of just the what I forget what the word I used earlier, but not the theme, the tone. The tone of the movie was so inconsistent.
Yeah.
It was comedic at some points. It was dark at some points, and it never really balanced out. Yeah, I just didn't enjoy it, and I understand for its historical value, for its connection to the Universal monsters. James Whale is an amazing director. Obviously, Mary Shelley wrote an amazing story. All that is true, and also I don't like this movie.
So there's a few scenes I really like in this movie that when you combine those scenes, it just equals I'm a fan of this movie. And those scenes include like the monster in the beginning coming out and just fucking going ape shit on this, just destroying an entire family. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, I really love the scene that he when he goes to the blind guy's house. That's great. I love all of that a lot, and I love the final scene so fucking much. And it disappoints me that we don't get more of that type of stuff in this movie.
yeah, like yeah, how it's unforgivable. You have a movie called The Bride of Frankenstein, and she's only in it for 5 minutes, and she was the most interesting character.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what
She's
we're
so
doing.
cool looking, and like if you haven't seen the movie, you would think she's in a lot more of this movie. Like I've seen it, and I always think she is until I rewatch it, and it's like that's it. Because I mean, any like T-shirt or postal, any type of like fan art always has the bride doing all this cool shit, but she's only in one room for maybe 5 minutes at the most.
Yeah, and I was looking at this Neil Gaiman quote where he was talking about how he wanted to see more of her, and he said, so she's revealed. She hisses, screeches, is terrified, is wonderful, and once we have seen her, there's nothing left for us, and that blows. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah,
So it's like if in Frankenhooker, we would have seen that whole movie, and then at the moment that she is created, the movie ends.
exactly.
The movie doesn't get good until she's created and she goes out and starts killing all the Johns. You know,
That's why
so
Frankenhooker is superior to any Universal monster movie. Now, I haven't listened to the episode you did yet with Matt Donato. Is that how you say his name?
Donato, yeah, Matt
Donato?
Donato.
Donato, tomato, tomato. Cut that. Cut that,
That
cut
one I'm
that.
leaving in.
I have this thing I like to sing sometimes. You know that Nirvana song, Smells Like Teen Spirit?
Yeah,
I like to do the chorus, but as tomato tomato, so it'd be like a tomato, a tomato. So just so you know,
that's pretty
that's
good.
something I like to
How
sing. Thank you.
often do you sing that? Do you sing it in the
A,
song?
a fucking lot, like enough to that my family is really annoyed by it.
What are the
Um,
actual words?
I don't know. I forget.
Okay.
I've sang it as tomato tomato so often. That's all I know now.
When the song comes on, do you sing it? Do you say tomato, tomato?
I can't remember the last time
Like,
that song's come on, man.
like on your iPod or whatever the hell you have on your.
I don't have Nirvana.
Oh, you don't like music.
I don't listen to music. I don't rate music. I don't listen to it.
Okay, cool.
Um, that's all I can think of now is just singing that song. I'm sorry. I forget
No,
what we were talking about.
no. So we were talking about Matt Donato. You asked
Okay,
about
yeah. So I don't know if you liked Frankenhooker or not, but I personally love that movie to death.
yeah, I like that movie a lot. Like I understand that movie is not technically as good as this movie, but
Yeah, it is.
I had more fun watching. I just mean like proficiently, like
I think it
the
is.
cinematography and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of stuff wrong with Frankenhooker and even some of the views
What's
of
wrong with
women and stuff like
Frankenhooker?
that. Listen to my episode on Frankenhooker if you haven't heard it. But
Let's do an
I'm just
episode of
saying,
Frankenhooker right now.
that I had more fun with that movie than I had with this movie.
When I think of like the Frankenstein movie, it's like those two of them. I don't think. I mean, I know there's a bunch of like Frankenstein on it and his teenage son or whatever those movies were called. I haven't seen any of those spin-offs, but when I think of Frankenstein, what I love the most are like the movies inspired by Frankenstein, like
Mm.
Frankenhoogle, Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator.
I
I
haven't seen
love
Bride of
those.
Reanimator.
Well,
How does that one hold up to this one?
stick around for the
Ah.
recommendations, pal. But I'll talk about it now. I love Bride of Reanimator. I saw it recently, actually, for the first time because Joe Bob Briggs had it on his Shuttle show. I know you don't like him. That's fine. But it was a great episode of his show and a great introduction to the movie. I loved it because, I mean, what I love about mad scientist shit is when it goes wrong and the scientist is like all sweaty and like frantic trying to like fix all of his mistakes but things keep going wrong. That's the shit I love. And that stuff is like in fucking abundance in Brad of Reanimator.
Mhm. Yeah.
Same with
And
Frankenhoogle.
and it's not so much here though, right? Like
Yeah.
they're pretty good at their job. Like they reanimate the body fairly quickly with no issues.
Right. I feel like without these movies though, the movies I love so much probably wouldn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit now about James Whale and his being gay and it, quote unquote, showing up in his work. So I had some stuff that I wanted to say. So it's a little bit of a paragraph. So the scholars have identified a gay sensibility suffused throughout the film, especially a camp sensibility, particularly embodied in the character of Pretorius and his relationship with Henry Frankenstein. Pretorius serves as a sort of gay Mephistopheles, a figure of seduction and temptation, going so far as to pull Frankenstein away from his bride on their wedding night to engage in the unnatural act of non procreative life. They also go so far as to suggest that Whale's homosexuality is expressed in both Frankenstein and the Bride, as a vision of both films had of the monster as an antisocial figure in the same way that gay people were quote unquote things that should not have happened. The monster, whose affections for the male hermit and the female bride he discusses with identical language, he calls them both friends, has been read as sexually unsettled or even bisexual. So these are all like criticisms of the movie, analysis of James Whale being gay and adding that into it. I'm not saying I necessarily believe all this stuff, but this is just some of the stuff they've said. So they even say that he has no innate understanding that the male female bond he is to forge with the bride is assumed to be the primary one, or that it carries a different sexual valence from his relationships with Pretorius and the Hermit. All effective relationships are as easily friendships as marriage. So what they're saying is that the monster doesn't know, if he can barely talk, how is it supposed to be attracted to somebody? I don't know. Did you get the feeling when the monster saw his bride to be that he was attracted to her? Like, do you remember getting that sense?
My memory of the end of the movie is she comes to life. He is delighted that he has like a companion, and
Yeah,
then he notices like the bride's immediate disgust with him, and his delight just like completely crashes into this like this disappointment and this like this realization that he's repulsive and will always be repulsive. That's how I recall the ending going.
yeah, yeah. So even cultural critic Gary Morris from the Bright Lights Film Journal said that indeed his relationship with the hermit has been interpreted as a same-sex marriage that heterosexual society will not tolerate. No mistake, this is a marriage and a viable one, he says. But Whale reminds us quickly that society does not approve. The monster, or the outsider, is driven from his scene of domestic pleasure by two gun toting rubes who happen upon this startling alliance and quickly, instinctively proceed to destroy it.
I mean, if put it in that context, yes, that makes sense. Is that like the intention? I doubt it, but also I'm not the one who wrote the movie. Like, I don't think that is what is trying to be said. I think it's more like if you can't see what someone looks like, you will less likely to judge them based on the looks, right? I think that's what that scene is supposed to be. That finally he encounters someone who can't see what he looks like, and it turns out the monster isn't so much a monster after all. And then when someone can see him, shit goes nuts again. I never got like a gate reading from that scene, but it makes sense. I mean, I know the context of that quote you just gave me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that fits. It's not wrong.
Yeah, it's an interpretation of it. You can agree with it or you don't. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I could see how somebody could come to the conclusion. However, some dismiss this as just a critic evaluation of the movie. All artists do work that comes out of the unconscious mind, and later on you can analyze it and say the symbolism may mean something, but artists don't think that way. And he says, I would bet my life that James Whale would never have had such concepts in mind. I think the closest you can come to a homosexual metaphor in his films to identify that certain sort of a camp humor, which we were talking about with Pretorius earlier. So I didn't necessarily get a lot of camp from Pretorius, but maybe others did. So Whale's partner David Lewis stated flatly that Whale's sexual orientation was not germane to his filmmaking. He said Jimmy was first and foremost an artist, and his films represent the work of an artist, not a gay artist, but an artist. And Whale's biographer, Curtis, rejects the notion that Whale would have identified with the monster from a homosexual perspective, stating that if the highly class conscious Whale felt himself to be an antisocial figure, it would have been based not in his sexuality, but in his origin in the lower classes. So you have two people that are close to him saying that's not what he meant. Then you
Yeah.
have others afterwards who are interpreting the work, which is fine. I know that's what people do. They interpret work, they criticize, and I don't mean it in the negative term, just in the general sense. When you're a film critic, you're criticizing the movie, and you got to do what you have to do. But I'm not seeing it here. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that because it is important. Because James Whale was an out gay actor in the 30s and 40s.
And that dude had a pretty tragic ending. He fucking committed suicide by drowning himself in a swimming pool.
Yeah. Did you read his letter?
Yeah,
Suicide letter.
it's in front of me right now.
It's pretty messed up. Do you want to read it?
Nope, because I feel like I would do it in an accent that would
Okay.
just kind of be offensive to someone who killed themselves.
So James Whale was born July 22nd, 1989, died May 29th, 1957, at age 67 from suicide. He, like Max said, he drowned himself in his pool, and he wrote a love. I'm sorry, he wrote a
A
suicide note
love
that
letter.
said, "Yeah, I mean, it is a love letter,
A
but
love
it's a
letter to
suicide.
death.
To all I love, do not grieve for me. My nerves are all shot, and for the last year I have been in agony day and night, except when I sleep with sleeping pills. And any peace I have by day is when I am drugged by pills. I have had a wonderful life, but it is over, and my nerves get worse, and I am afraid they will have to take me away. So please forgive me, all those I love, and may God forgive me too. But I cannot bear the agony, and it is best for everyone this way. The future is just old age and illness and pain. Goodbye, and thank you for all of your love. I must have peace, and this is the only way."
Jimmy.
It's fucked up, man.
He went by Jimmy.
And he, yeah, and he, so he had suffered a series of strokes, and then
Yeah, and then like, didn't he get like fucking shock treatment for
yeah,
depression as well? That he just got fucked up. I haven't read a lot about him, but I think like his career took a pretty sharp decline. I think I read something where it was suspected due to his openness with homosexuality that it could be why. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. That's so when he was in the Hollywood system, it was fine because he was openly gay, but he was also producing. Then
Yeah.
when his movies started to take a hit financially, he no longer became useful to them, and so he was no longer in the system. So it's harder for him to get work. He had to tool around. He led a very interesting life. He had to he went back to Broadway, tried to put on a play there. It wasn't successful, but he was financially secure. He was able to use the money that he got to become wealthy, and so he vacationed or went around Europe, and he found a younger male that he liked, and he hired him as to become his valet or something like that. And then he told his husband that he was bringing him home with him, and his husband was like, "No way!" And so they kind of divorced, but they remained friends. But that's the person that was living with him when he passed away, was this other person. So yeah, he had a short, well, not a short career, but he had a career in Hollywood that kind of ended on a flat note, which sucked because he made some good movies. Like he made The Invisible Man,
Yeah.
which is my favorite Universal horror film.
I don't think I've seen that one. Well, if I did, I think I fell asleep to it. Which isn't a comment on the movie, just comment on myself falling asleep. I own
Yeah.
it. I should watch it again.
What is the set that you have? Is it like all of them?
No, I just bought a bunch of the DVDs cheap, like at some fucking stroll one time or
Oh, okay.
something. I don't know. Well, maybe it is a set of them. It might be a set of them. I don't fucking remember. It might be a set, Miguel.
Okay. So the other thing I want to talk about was the Christian imagery in the movie, and
Yeah.
people were talking about that they see Frankenstein as a Christ figure because he rose from the
Mhm.
dead. However, film scholar Scott McQueen noted Whale's lack of any religious convictions. He disputes the notion that the monster is a Christ figure. Rather, the monster is a mockery of the divine, since having been created by man rather than God, it lacks the divine spark. So in Crucifying the Monster, he says, Whale pushes the audience's buttons by inverting the central Christian belief of the death of Christ, followed by the resurrection. The monster is raised from the dead first and then crucified. So it's mirroring the story of Jesus.
Yeah.
So
I
I like that. I enjoyed that part of it.
I didn't. I mean, it's difficult to watch this movie and not think of God stuff just because he's giving life to something, but it's not something I've given a lot of thought to. I'm not
Yeah.
much of a God guy.
Yeah, and I'm not either. I'm an atheist. Well, first of all, you're on my show. We're in a confessional here, so be respectful, okay?
I, this is my show today, Miguel.
Oh shit! Fuck, I forgot. All right,
You will respect what I say, and you will
that's
not cut anything I say.
okay. How about this? You just edit the show and you leave out whatever you want.
It's fine as is. Run it.
So yeah, I saw the Christian imagery and I just wanted to address it, but the same. I'm not a religious person. I'm an atheist. So, but so I just want to say that the movie is deeper than it seems. But even with all that, I don't know. It just wasn't feeling it. So
Something else I appreciate with all these Universal monster movies, and I guess most old ass movies, it's the runtime. It's not too long. You can knock it out in fucking 80 minutes and be done with
hour
it.
15. This movie was an hour 15. That's something I loved about this movie. It
Yeah.
was very short.
Meanwhile, what's that? How long is that Batman movie? Like 18 days or something?
It's like 3 hours long, I guess.
Ridiculous.
So we typically rate the movie out of 5 upside down crosses.
Okay,
So
so I am the host of this episode today, and you know what? I'm going to abolish the concept of rating a movie. So for this episode, we can just say what you think about it, but not in a way that rates it. And we have done that. I like it more than you do. You don't quite like it that much, and that's okay. We don't need to go beyond that. We don't need to follow some fucking fascist rating system to fucking set one movie down or insult it or just shit on the people who made something. It is what it is. Some people like a movie, some people don't. There's no
you know
reason
what?
to rate it.
I agree with you on that. 3.5 upside down crosses for me.
I'll give it 2.5.
No way, you love this movie. It's not 2.5. You're like at 4.5, right?
Nah,
Where you at 5? Is it like a perfect movie for you?
I would probably do 3.5.
Okay, all right. For being the best horror sequel ever, and you're giving it
I
3.
said I said one of the best, and to be completely fair, there's not that many good sequels in horror movies.
Aliens.
I've never seen it. I
Max,
haven't.
You're just gonna just be my co-host from now on. All right. So what we've rated it now. So then, what we typically do next is, in order to be fully absolved of your horror movie sin, I will suggest
I have to give you three
yes.
recommendations.
In
If
order for
okay,
me to be fully absolved, you will have to give me 3 movie suggestions.
I got them. Tying in with this movie, easy fucking peasy. Do they have to be movies you have not seen?
Yes.
Okay, so it might be a few. Okay, so one I know you haven't seen, Bride of Reanimator.
Bride of Reanimator. Yes, exactly.
Haven't seen it? You have to see it. It's
Okay.
great. Um,
I'm gonna write these
Bride of
down because I will be
okay,
watching it. Because you, when you came on my show, were
yeah,
assigned some homework.
I saw
Eh,
those movies.
Yeah, and you didn't see them. So there we go.
What will those movies, Miguel?
All right, Max. These are the 3 movies I'll be recommending to you: Night of the Comet from 1984, Shockwaves from 1977, and the Night of the Living Dead remake from 1990. And those are the movies. I just cut them in.
Yeah. Okay, so Bride of Reanimator. I love that movie. It's great. Do you like Reanimator? Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I love Bride. I love Reanimator. Yeah,
I kind of think Bride is superior to the original.
really.
I think so. I might
Okay.
need to watch it again to
Yeah,
state
because
that with
you
like
tend to watch movies and then discuss them after you haven't seen them for months and months and
yeah,
years,
yeah.
and then your opinion changes.
I'm fucking famous, dude. I don't have time for this.
Okay, cool. All right, so
second
Bride of
movie,
Reanimator.
second movie, Bride of Chucky. Have you seen this?
Fuck, I have not seen The Bride of Chucky.
Yes, 2 for 2, baby. Oh yeah. Let's see. Fuck yes.
No,
I recommend The Bride of Frank from
no, I'm not doing it.
1996.
I reject that.
No, I fuck you. You can't reject it.
The Bride of Frank.
Yeah, every one of these reviews will just like this film is fucking nasty. Yes, I want to see this so bad. How do we find it? Let's go to Just Watch. It's not even listed. So The Bride of Frank, directed by Steve Ballet. Well, Ballot. I don't know how he pronounces it. It doesn't have the only one crew wise on Letterboxd is listed is the director. There's like 5 names listed on the cast. The Bride of Frank, National Hemlock.
So you want me to see Blackenstein? Okay, cool. I got that.
No, The Bride of Frank. I don't understand why this is so difficult.
All right, I'm gonna look up The Bride of Frank, and if that shit looks nasty, if I can't find that movie, then
Yeah,
I just won't watch it. I
I'm
don't
not
know if I
gonna
can
watch
find
any of these.
it. I'm definitely gonna watch Bride of Chucky and Bride of Reanimator. All right, Max, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. If you can please let my guests know where they can follow you, how they can buy your books, how they can get tickets for the Ghoulish Festival, how they can support you in any way.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can do that. You want me to give you some info? I was only half listening. Um, yeah, my name is Max Booth. You can follow me on Twitter at Give Me Your Teeth. My website is my web. You can follow me on Twitter at Give Me Your Teeth. My website is talesfromthebooth.com. You can go and buy the books I publish at ghoulishbooks.com. I have a podcast called Ghoulish. You can visit that podcast at ghoulishpod.com. And if you want to find out more information about the book fest, go to ghoulishbookfest.com.
Great. And if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at MHCPod. On Instagram, I'm at My Horror Confessional. If you'd like to email the show, you can email me at myhorrorconfessional@gmail.com. The music was done by Taylor Fox. You can follow her on Instagram at the Taylor Fox. And the artwork was done by my friend Captain Mikey. You can follow him on Instagram at Captain_Mikey_art. That has been this experiment. Fucking mad scientist Max Booth the third had this was the host for this episode, and now that experiment is over. He will no longer be part of this show. He will never be allowed to come back on again. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you later. You motherfucker.
Me?
Yeah, you.
What did that do?